Hello and welcome back to all of the returning listeners. And if you're new here, well, we're glad you're joining us in this virtual world. Either way, y'all are tuning in to season 2 of Whether You Like It or Not, a Toronto-based podcast that started right out of Jane and Finch. I'm your host, Moody, a multi-ethnic Latina with many interests, as you'll learn through the episodes in this season. Join us in this safe, inclusive space as guests and I share meaningful experiences and engage in typically unspoken dialogues along with all sorts of babosadas. I think it's fair to say this is where we get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable, whether you like it or not. If this isn't your first time lending us your ears, you're already well aware that this content can get explicit. We get mother effing passionate up in this mother. So I want to plug in a disclaimer here to say that sometimes the language used ain't kid friendly. So be mindful of that before you settle in, pop in your headphones, or maybe listen to us when there isn't no little people around. Maybe when you're going on a walk, going for a jog, going to the gym, commuting, and so on and so forth. And also, unless otherwise stated, and even then, I am not an expert on any topic covered. Therefore, what we share here is based on experience and opinions. All right. Our goal with this podcast, one of them because, I never just do something for one single purpose. There's usually a bunch of factors that lead me to take action on something like this. But one of our goals is to create a safe space, build community, create new connections, strengthen connections with others who might feel like there isn't someone out there who they can relate to, or maybe they're afraid to have certain conversations. Maybe there's just interest in what we have to say. There's going to be a whole bunch of different people on the podcast that are going to bring their own knowledge, their own experience, perspective, opinion, and so on. And you guys just might be interested in what they have to say. So I think also too, sometimes it's hard to have conversations with people about certain things because of these differing opinions, which again are based on our subjective experiences usually. And I think having disagreements are natural and should be expected or anticipated at the very least. Even siblings who grow up in the same household have different experiences. That's part of why I chose the name that I chose for the podcast. So I want to give a bit of an update, a life update, because it has been quite some time since I recorded or released an episode, I will say. I don't even think I released an episode all of 2023. Maybe I did. Maybe in the beginning. I think I released an episode in February of 2023. But that's almost a year, you guys. That is horrible. And I'm not going to be hard on myself. I will share a little bit of what sort of set me back, I think. And this transcends from years back, even before I started the podcast. It's just things that sort of caught up to me afterwards. But for those who are new here, I think I should introduce myself, given that this is the first episode of season 2, and I don't think I've ever really shared in depth who I am. So my name is Muriel Lopez Silva, but some call me Moody, some call me Moody, some call me Mari. My uncles and my dad call me Moyene. So it really does depend on who you are, how we know each other, what kind of relationship we got. My parents are from Nicaragua. However, I am of mixed ancestry. I find that a lot of people come to find later on in life that they are of mixed descent, which is really cool. Specifically people throughout Latin America y el Caribe. I am indigenous to Central America. I am European. I am African and also East Asian. So if that ain't un sancocho, I don't know what is, as Luch would say. Luch is my partner, by the way. I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia. My parents left there when I was just 2 weeks old. My parents originally left Nicaragua when they were really, really, really young. Like my mom was 15. I think my dad was like 7, 8 years old. They moved to Los Angeles, California, which is where majority of my family is at. Some family members that I have not even met before in life, like ever. And then they moved to BC. They had me. And, after they left, I've never been back. So it's definitely on my bucket list to not only go back and visit, but to live there for at least 1 year of my life. So I'm working on that. I'm working on at least getting that first part of that bucket list checked off and visiting BC at some point in time this year. I also, just to plug this in and like share a really cool story, I have a cousin that's like long lost and we've known about her since we were kids, but she wasn't really aware of us until she did an ancestry test and was connected to me. And yeah, it's wild. So I think it would be really cool to interview her on the podcast, but you know, baby steps, we'll say. Anyways, when my parents left Vancouver, they moved to Scarborough when we first arrived. So, you know, a west side thing turning into a east side thing. Joanna and Abby, if you guys are hearing this, you already know. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll come across my posts on my stories where I usually tease my cousins, and I'll tag them too. Or I'll like come across shit on Instagram and I'll tag them directly in the reels or in the posts that like have to do with Scarborough. But it's just, you know, it's just me teasing them. They live in the East End, but you know, it's all fun and games. I lived on Western Road for a bit. My first school was Bala Public School, if anybody knows it. Then I lived in Rexdale. I went to St. John Vianney. I lived in Driftwood, Gosford Boulevard, went to St. Augustine. Then went to St. Wilfrid's because we moved to like the Keelan Finch area. And then I ended up graduating from there and attended James Cardinal McGuigan at Keelan Finch. That was my high school for all my high school years. It was such an incredible experience. I cherished those years so much. I cherish the people that I grew up with. I cherish the fact that I grew up in such a culturally diverse community. Jane and Finch is not a place that people portray to be on social media or in the news. Like, of course, everywhere has good and bad and, you know, pockets of shady places. But yo, Jane and Finch is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And there's so much going on there that I really hate when the media and the news try to portray it as something just negative. There's so many beautiful people. There's cultures so rich in diversity. There's an incredible amount of food and art and just languages that you hear just walking up the strip for 5 minutes, people having a conversation. And you know, man, I'm forever grateful that I grew up where I grew up and like that trajectory of my life. But anyway, I ended up pregnant pretty much right after high school. Otherwise, yo girl would have been living in California with my family in LA. That was the plan originally, but you know, things change, which it's all good because I'm very happy and content with where I'm at right now. I am a young mom. I you know, I could have become a statistic, but after my son was born, I was 18 and I was like, nah, like this can't be the life that I offer him. And I had decided that originally I wanted to go to culinary arts school after I decided that I was going to stay here and raise my child here and not move to LA after all. And then I don't know what changed. I think I just wanted to see what there was out there, like what more is there, and can I attain it? Can I reach for more? And can I be that example for my son? And I applied to U of T. I got into one of their programs there. I attended university and I was a university student, and that was quite the experience, especially, you know, being a young mom and proving to myself in that process that I could do it, that I could do all the things that I want to do. I just had to apply myself and organize myself and really manage my time and align myself with what my priorities needed to be in order for me to be successful in what I had set out to do. And so I attended their St. George campus. I miss school so much, but I hope to get back to it one day and continue on that growth. I work in healthcare, specifically with a team of wonderful people who I feel are more than colleagues. They are my friends. They are mentors for me in my career. There's one person in particular that just keeps me learning, and I'm just forever grateful to her. Joanna, you know who you are. I look up to her so much, and like just talking about her right now, I get emotional because I think just naturally it's just become that. And I don't even know if she realizes it, but I think she does, because our brains have this thing where we really do connect. So anywho, we work for a program that aims to enhance the cancer care experience and cancer care journey with and for First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and urban Indigenous peoples, not only the patients, but their families and, you know, the relatives that they have that support them while they are receiving treatment in the hospital or hospitals, because we work across the region. I work for the Toronto Central region. And, you know, it's interesting, like I think about now the role that I'm in, and I think about being in university, and I remember telling people what I was studying and them asking me, you know, what are you going to do when you're done? Like, what can you do with that? One of my things was, one of my specialties, so I guess I did a specialist in Indigenous studies. And whenever I would share with people what I was doing, they were like, well, what are you going to do with that? You know? And it made me a little bit nervous, but it was something that I was so truly invested in and incredibly passionate in learning about. And I can feel myself getting emotionally riled up and angry and sad and upset and like just sometimes even disgusted with how Canada became to be as a nation, as a country, and everything that happened for us to be here today. And so for me, being in this role, it's so much more significant than just having a job and having a career that pays you well enough to be able to survive and provide for your kids. Like that's honestly, I think, a bonus, but doing something that I truly care about. And I am so grateful to do and work alongside these incredible people that I continue to learn from every day is like, it's just amazing. And on top of that, dude, like I'm going to motherfucking Australia in March. Like what? I could have never imagined this for myself when I was in university, but I really believed that there was something more for me out there. And I think I'm living my more these days, you know? So anywho, when Australia happens and March comes along and I come back from that trip, I will definitely be recording an episode talking about that, because I know it's going to be an experience. I'm just not looking forward to that 26, 27 hour travel time. So anywho, yeah, I've been in that role for about 6 years. We do some really cool stuff together, and I look forward to continue growing in my career. Still got so much more to learn. So you already know what it is. As for the podcast, it's been a real struggle to get on here last year. There was a lot going on. A lot. Okay. I have struggled with my mental health as a kid. Had it be fairly okay for some years, and then in adulthood, it's just been very challenging to manage and find things that keep me well grounded and balanced. On a personal level, there's been relationship changes with people I felt were really close to my heart and had a significant impact in my life and like played a major role in my life. One of those relationships being my relationship with my dad, like, you know, the man who raised me. That took a toll on me. My parents separated when I was around 23, 24 years old. Took some years to realize that even as an adult, watching a marriage dissipate completely was very difficult. And all the things that happened before it ended was an added layer. Like those were just layers upon layers. At the same time, I was dealing with my relationship with my best friend at the time ending as well. I was in university too, had a business, working, had my son, moved out again from where I lived with my parents, so on and so on, like just life, right? I had to go some years down the line, I had to go through a whole court process with my baby daddy, who at that point I wanted to sell because I just couldn't deal with him. I'm kidding, duh. We get along fairly decently these days, and things have been resolved for some years now, but that was a fucking factor. And it was incredibly stressful because it's my son. Like, my son is my son. My son is my son. Like, literally, my world revolves around him. So, well, around my kids. And so that was incredibly grueling, and it took a toll on me. And so, you know, these things that I'm sharing happened maybe, I'll say they started around 10 years ago. Not having dealt with the aftermath, with some parts of it were traumatic, with the challenges, not learning how to cope with these things happening in my life, now being an adult, right? Like 23, 24, this stuff starts, you know, kind of rolling in my life. It was really difficult because I'd never learned how to cope, how to manage. I didn't really think about therapy. You know, I didn't think about what could I do to keep myself sane? What could I do to cope? How can I help myself? How do I even seek help? You know? And when I started the podcast, they were things that I really tried to just sweep under the rug for myself. And it was really, really easy at first because I would just tell myself, I don't care. Like, I don't care that I don't talk to my dad. I don't care that he's not around. I don't care that I don't see him. I don't care if he doesn't have a relationship with my son anymore. And obviously, like, those things aren't true. And so it took a while for me. And it took many conversations with my cousins, with my siblings even. With my partner, with my son. My son who had such a close relationship with his grandfather. My dad is really young, y'all. My dad was 16 when I was born, okay? So he's a cool grandpa. And he was a great dad. He did everything in his power for us growing up to feel like we had what we needed and more. We weren't rich by no means. Like, I grew up as a kid going to the food bank with my mom and my godmother. My mom had the language barrier, and my dad speaks English incredibly well, like fluently. And my godmother, who also played a really critical role in my life growing up, she introduced my mom to these supports that were available to us. And I remember going to the food bank. I don't know if anyone's ever been to this particular one, but there was one beside the Bingo by Jane and Wilson. And I remember going to the food bank with them, and I thought it was so cool. Like, I didn't know. I just thought it was like another grocery store. And later on in life, I learned that it was a food bank, and I was embarrassed by that at first. And then as I got older, it was like, nah, bitch, like, my parents did what they could with what they had. And it took a long time for me to realize that I don't resent my father. I'm just really hurt by, I guess, the change in the dynamic now in the relationship. Some shit did go on. Some shit did go down that ultimately left me, because I was so back and forth with the idea, like, do I continue talking to my dad or do I not? Because what he did was wrong. He fucked up. He could have done things a different way. I was so hurt by it. And then something happened when we were all in Nicaragua one year that just sort of led me to be like, fuck you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And so all this to say, of course I'm fucking crying on my first episode. God damn. Anyways, all this to say that it caught up to me, and it really fucked with my ability to create. It really fucked with my ability to even gather my thoughts, gather my words, articulate what I want to say. Like, even watching videos on Instagram. or TV shows or movies where there's a dad and a daughter sharing like a beautiful moment. I couldn't. I had to look away because I would just start crying. And I think that was my way of missing my dad and missing that dynamic. I have a daughter now. My daughter has not met my father. My daughter is 4 years old. Fuck. God damn. Crying like a little baby beach. Anyways. Yeah, so I've really just been reflecting this last year on not denying myself the right to be happy and experience a new relationship with my dad, for example. I didn't realize the impact that had on me, but honestly, it was a pretty big one. Clearly, because I'm still crying about it. My dad and I, we don't talk yet. We still don't really talk, you know. Last year was when we first started having more conversations, like very, very little, very, like it's only been a few months, honestly. And before that, it had been like 6 years since we'd spoke. So, you know, shit does catch up to you. Shit will, like this, will block you from creating, in my experience. It'll block you from moving forward in life. And I think sometimes we just really need to sit with ourselves and think about what we can do to release some of the things that no longer serve us, like holding on to that grudge. It just wasn't serving me anymore. It worked for like 2 years, I think, maybe 3, maybe 4. But after that, it just became debilitating. And I began to really procrastinate. And I've never been that type of person. And I just never understood why. Like, why am I holding myself back? What is keeping me from growing? What is keeping me from committing to the podcast? Like, I enjoy this shit. So what the fuck is going on? What is keeping me from committing to Hikaru, the brand? And what is keeping me from going through with my projects? What is keeping me from being happy? And I think it was a combination of things, but this one was really, really impactful for me. So, you know, there was that. There was that. Then on top of that, like the snowball effect, I guess, just started sort of developing and building, where, you know, I got with my partner, who I'm currently with, around the time that these things started sort of desenvolviéndose, I guess. I don't know what a word in English is para desenvolver, but yeah, I got to think of that. Google. But yeah, so at the same time where like this tumultuous relationship started sort of being developed with my dad, I got with my partner, who I'm currently with, Luch. We had some shit happen as well, you know, in our relationship early on. Then got back together, had my daughter, more shit happened, including me almost dying. Luch also, you know, had his own personal things occur with him in his life, where his mom passed away very suddenly. So dealing with my own shit, and then not necessarily being the best partner for him, not necessarily being there or being fully really mindful, I guess, about what he needed, because I was there. I think I was there, but just being more mindful about what he needed and how I could have just given him a little bit more breathing room would have been helpful to him. I didn't really take that in, and I feel like that was so selfish of me. But anyways, and then we had our daughter. And then I almost died, basically, after giving birth to her. If my midwife hadn't come to our home for a 5-day visit, I probably would have died. And that's not me saying it. That's my doctors saying it. That's the 5 leading physicians on the 5 different teams who were trying to figure out what the hell was going on saying that to me. There's more to it, but I think that might come up naturally in a conversation with a guest in this season. I did talk about it, I think, a little bit in season 1, episode 4, where Ornella, hey girl, came and we had a conversation on motherhood. So there's that. It's a really interesting conversation. If you haven't heard that episode, I urge you to check it out. Yeah, so I'll save the details. We'll probably talk about it when Luch comes up on this episode, on this season. So yes, Luch will be a guest on the podcast because there's bare shit to talk about. We could talk about I could probably put a whole podcast together with just Luch, or like a whole season, por lo menos, with just he and I just talking our shit. All this to say that, you know, these things have impacted me, and I'm not finding a way to address the trauma. It impacts just everything. And it just kept creating layers and like the snowball effect and trauma within me. So I'm in the process of figuring my shit out. Okay. And I think if I don't have a clear mind again, and if I'm not incorporating ways to take care of my overall well-being, I won't be able to focus. I won't be able to create. Like, it's like if you have a cluttered or messy home, some people can't function. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those bitches. Okay. That's just me. So this 2024 year, although I'm seriously contemplating starting it off on the first day of spring with the renewal of, you know, plant life and the sun coming back around. Interestingly, also, March 21st is the first day of spring, and March 27th are my kids' birthdays. I'm also a mom. I don't know if I'm a mom to 2 kids. So not just Alex, but maybe I mentioned her. Yeah, I did mention her. My daughter, Zoraida, who I share with Luch, is an angel, literally, sent from his mom. So again, we'll talk about that probably on an episode in the podcast. That one is going to be incredibly intimate, I bet, and there will be crying for sure. I laugh because I already know. So yeah, like, I want to be able to hold myself accountable and do all the cool stuff I had planned even before I started this podcasting journey. I literally make lists and Google Docs and send emails to myself and put notes in my fucking iPhone and shit. Write notes down in my notebook. And, you know, there's so many ideas that I have that I just haven't been able to execute them because I'm limiting my damn self. And I'm just over it. Like, I'm over my shit. So I also will share that we are now available on YouTube. It won't be a video podcast, but if you're someone who doesn't want to pay or doesn't, for whatever reason, pay a monthly subscription for Spotify, Apple, Google, and so on, that is available. Also, I think season 3 will have a bit more video footage and content. Pero por ahora, I gotta take baby steps. You know, try not to do too much at once. This was something that Luch kept saying to me when I first started with the podcast and the clothing brand and going back to work and this and that. And he was like, girl, don't do it. Don't do it porque I know you and you're a perfectionist and you're just going to try to you're going to end up overwhelming yourself by trying to do too much. And I didn't listen. And I always tell him, like, I'm older than you. Respect me. You got to listen to me. But sometimes, you know, women don't have it right all the time. Us ladies don't always get to say we were right. And I got to give it to him. He was right. So having too much to manage can be overwhelming, which is the opposite of one of the reasons why I started this podcast. I want this to be a form of therapy. I want this to be a place where not only myself, but people can come and share and have that experience of doing something different, something new, you know, get comfortable. As I said in the trailer and in my intro, get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable, whether you like it or we like it or not. I want to create these episodes to also track my own growth. I think there is something about people's voices that you can hear the hurt in their pain. Like, I literally just cried. The joy in their spirits, the curiosity in their inner child, and feeding that part of ourselves, healing that part of ourselves. I think it is so common to hear in our culture, and by our culture, I'll say like Latin American culture, que calladita te ves más bonita. And it's like, that translates to basically telling, women, just keep your mouth shut. You look prettier that way, type of thing. And, to not ask too many questions. And it's like, I can't be that person. I'm not, if I'm interested in you and in your story, and if it's something you're willing to share, I'm going to ask all the questions. Voy a hacer una metida, okay? And not because I'm una chismosa, maybe a little metida, pero mostly because I've always been interested in the ways people are connected. I think I should have been a journalist, but I think we're past that. But yeah, I've always been interested in the ways, we as humans share a common human experience. And I learned so much that way about people, about who they are, what makes them them, and even for my own self too. I also studied psych in university. That's one of my other, I forgot what it's called, pathways. I don't even know. But anyways, I think that's why I studied it, because I just love to learn about what makes people who they are. Anywho, I also want this podcast to be a way that if something were to happen to me early on in life and I don't get to grow old and my kids don't get to experience me for, a long period of time in their adulthood, then I hope this is something they can come back to and have a giggle over, cry over, or soothe themselves with. Maybe this is one of those ways they get to hear my voice and hear about some of my experiences with them. Our growth as mother and children. Who knows? They may even make an appearance in some of my recordings. One of my kids, I will tell you this, one of my babies has recorded in a studio most recently. I think it was in November or December 2023. And it is the cutest, most sweetest little thing you will ever hear. We got to share it. I'm going to talk to Luch about it. Another thing I would love to do is have my mom on here, my uncles, my cousins. Like, it's going to be a whole thing. The little family I have and close people I have will at some point in time, I hope, be on an episode on the podcast. For those episodes, I think I would like for them to be video episodes. So maybe some of the conversations will wait until season 3, but we'll see how it goes. And with that, I will also share that I've recorded with our first guest. I've had 2 already guests, but our first guest, that episode will be coming out January 18th at 6 a.m. That is on a Monday. Shit, is it a Monday? Hold up, yo. Let me check because... Oh, my bad. January 15th. January 15th at 6 a.m. Okay, Eastern Standard Time. If nothing changes. So please set your notifications on. This will be a very interesting episode. I was like, yo, just start it off with a bang, bro, because it's been a while. Give the people them something good. I enjoyed recording this episode. It's with Luch's cousin, someone he considers to be his sister, his confidant. Some of y'all may know her. Her name is Giselle, or as I call her, Giselle, or G. I think some people call her Gigi, which like that just does not, I can't call her that. I don't know. It's different for me. I'm just G or Giselle, and that's it. She and I went to the same elementary school, went to the same high school. We sat down. She shared her very personal, very intimate story on the podcast on having been arrested upon landing in Aruba for drug trafficking. So I think it's worthwhile to tune in, but that's just me. And yes, I am biased. I'm allowed to be. Hey, espérate, que me están saliendo par de bars, Luch, que lo que. Oh my God. Yo, I do this shit. I do this shit to him even when we're at home. Like, I don't mean to rhyme and something comes out, I'll be like, oh shit, what are you talking about? So the episode will release. Yo, I laugh at myself because the episode will release on Monday, the 15th, if nothing changes, and we are going to go live on IG on the Friday, which I believe is the 19th. Again, if all goes as planned. I will be sharing a link where people can ask questions anonymously prior to January 19th. So I'm thinking maybe since the episode comes out on the 15th, once that episode has been released, maybe even on the same day, I will post a link on my Instagram story where people can ask questions or make comments or so whatever, anonymously. Once you've heard the episode, you're invited to go to this link, ask questions you might have for G or myself, but you know, it's mostly for her. Then on Friday the 19th, we'll go live in the evening. I'm thinking maybe around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. depending on however long the conversation needs to run. But honestly, I don't like going more than an hour. I would even push it as far back to say like 45 minutes max. And she'll answer those questions along with any other questions that people may have in that moment as we are going to be live. So she'll also share an update on what she's been up to since we recorded that episode, which was back in the fall of 2023. And anyone who's interested can connect with her through Instagram. This is the format that I'm going to follow whenever we have people on the podcast. I think connecting live has a different type of significance to it, has a different type of feel to it because it's real time. People get to ask questions, you know, you get to share your experiences or, you know, comments, opinions, and so on. And we also get to see one another. It's virtual, but, you know, I'm definitely excited for that. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyways, this is just a bit of an overview. I felt like I needed to sort of do like a kind of like a check-in. I might do a check-in just to, you know, like 5 minutes at the beginning of every episode to catch people up on what's been going on, what's going on, man. And yeah, just sort of go with the flow, I guess, as I've been doing, you know. Anywho, I want to thank you all for spending this time with me. I feel like episode 6 may be similar to this, but you know, we're in a whole new season and I'm trying this again. I needed to close off season 1 because I just kept going back and forth with the whole, do I continue recording hasta que llegue a episode 10 y después de ahí ya I pick it back up again y vamos a continuar con season 2? Do I not? Like, eso me tenía cansada y frustrada, to say the least. So I just sort of said, fuck it. Like, let me just close that fucking chapter off. I don't want to think about aligning the fucking content, aligning the fucking, you know, the scheme of colors for social media. Like, yo, doing this is fun, but the fucking whole content aspect of it, I just started using Meta Business Suite and it's helped a whole lot because I can just plop in my fucking reels and the episode captions and shit, like the real captions and stuff on there. But goddamn, if that didn't exist, I don't know if I would be doing the whole social media shit. So shout out to Melanie, because Mel, you really pointed that out to me. And even though I had set it up and I hadn't touched it, but you came along and you're like, girl, look into this and use it because it just may be the key. And honestly, I think it is the key to staying consistent with posting for me anyways. So shout out to my girl Mel. If you all need a graphic designer, somebody to help with marketing, somebody to help with giving you ideas on strategizing for your business, hit me up. And actually, I'm going to put her in the show notes because you're a big reason, Mel, as to why I'm able to get my content shit sorted out. If y'all have looked at my social media page for the WYLN Podcast account, which is the Whether You Like It or Not podcast account for Instagram, you're going to see that I've just been within the last month just consistent, I think, with posting. So you already know. Anyways, I've said too much. I've been on too long. Holla at your girl. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.